Okay, I'm going to talk about functionalism, and I'm going to jump right into section 1.6, but you should have already read sections 1.4 and 1.5 and have at least a little bit of an idea about what functionalism is. So let's look at the second paragraph in this section. Appia says, beliefs for a functionalist are characterized as states that are caused by sensations and perceptions of the appropriate kind, and they can cause other beliefs that interact with desires to produce action. Okay, so sensations and perceptions are the inputs, and the action is the output. Recall on page 20 that Appia defined or talked a little bit about inputs and outputs. And then the idea is that there are all of these mental states, beliefs, that's what Appia is talking about here, but also desires, emotions, and so forth that are in between the inputs and the outputs. Okay, so Appia has an example here about the belief that the sky is gray. He says, thus, for example, seeing a gray sky causes me to believe that the sky is gray, which may lead me to believe that it will rain, which may lead me to take an umbrella because I desire not to get wet. Here the input is sensation and perception, that is seeing the gray sky, and the output is action, taking the umbrella. The internal states that mediate between these two are beliefs and desires. Okay, so that's Appia's example, and that's what he goes through in a little bit of detail in the rest of the section. But I'm going to go through a different example, although we'll touch on all the same points that Appia makes. So we're going to look at the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. Okay, so here I am, let's say, and for some reason I'm yelling. And so I have the belief that Tom is in the restaurant, and it's seeing Tom in the restaurant that causes the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. So seeing Tom in the restaurant, that is, out there in the world, he's sitting in the restaurant, I see it, and that causes the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. So that's a perception causing a belief. And let's say that this belief causes another belief, Tom is on a date. So that would be something like this. Tom is on a date, and maybe I'm interested in meeting Tom's girlfriend. That would be a desire. That is just a wish or a want that I have, not desire in the sexual sense. So I'm interested in meeting Tom's girlfriend, and so I go into the restaurant. And so that would be an action. So we can have two more things here. Okay, so I have the desire to meet Tom's girlfriend. That's in purple here. And I also have the action going into the restaurant. So the belief, Tom's on a date, and the desire to meet his girlfriend, kind of together, I guess, caused the action go into the restaurant. Okay, so the idea here is that the belief that Tom is in the restaurant, this one here, is a belief that is caused by seeing Tom in the restaurant, caused by this thing, and that causes the belief that Tom is on a date, causes this other belief that we have up here. So that's what it means to be the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. It's the mental state that is caused by this one perception and causes this other belief. That's the idea that the way that functionalism would explain the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. Okay, except that won't do as a good characterization of the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. Someone can tell me that Tom is in the restaurant, so rather than seeing Tom, it might be, and that's what causes me to eventually, that I hear that, and that causes the belief that Tom is in the restaurant, or maybe Tom will text me. And from that causes the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. So either one of those inputs, those perceptions, will cause a belief that Tom is in the restaurant. Or, on the other hand, maybe I think that Tom has an identical twin brother who is in town. This would be another belief. And so if I have this other belief, Tom has an identical twin brother, then seeing Tom in the restaurant isn't going to necessarily, cause the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. Okay, so now, as Appia says on the top of page 24, let's look at that. The general point, so far as it goes, is that whether the evidence of your senses would lead you to some particular belief, here that the sky is gray or that Tom is in the restaurant, depends on what else you believe. A similar problem arises with output, although here the issue is even more complex. So back to our example. Say that I see Tom in the restaurant, and I don't think that he has a twin brother in town, and so seeing him causes the belief that Tom is in the restaurant. But this belief will only cause the next belief, that Tom is on a date, if I have certain other beliefs about Tom. For instance, that he's not in a dating slump, or he likes to go on dates. But let's say that I do have the belief that Tom doesn't like to go on dates. Okay, so I have this belief here. And so if I have this belief here, then the belief that Tom is in the restaurant is not going to cause the belief that Tom is on a date. And then, of course, I won't have a desire to meet his girlfriend, and I won't go in the restaurant. So the action, even though I have this belief here, that won't lead to the action going into the restaurant. Or, even if I don't have that other belief, and I do form the belief that Tom is on a date, the action that was in the first part of the example, going into the restaurant, depends on whether or not I wish to meet Tom's girlfriend. Maybe I wish very much not to meet her. Then the belief that Tom is in the restaurant and the belief that Tom's on a date won't eventually lead me to going in the restaurant, because I don't have the right desire. Okay, so if this is the desire here, desire not to meet Tom's girlfriend, then that's going to lead to the action not going in the restaurant. All right, back to Appia. As he says on page 24, so whereas for a heat sensor and a thermostat, recall that the thermostat example was on page 20. So whereas for a heat sensor and a thermostat, the effective input doesn't depend on an indefinitely large number of other internal states, in the case of belief in a mind, it does. In finding a way to handle this increased complexity, the analogy with the computer is helpful. For in this respect, computers are more like minds than like thermostats. Okay, then he talks about a bunch of stuff, but skipping down to the bottom of this paragraph. The general strategy is this. We must specify the functional role of a state A by saying what will happen for any input if the computer is in state A, but in a way that depends on what the other internal states are. So, basically the idea is, what's the functional role? What will this belief, the belief that Tom's in the restaurant, do? We want to define what it will do, but we have to define what it will do knowing what the other internal states are. So, say a desire to meet the girlfriend or a desire not to meet the girlfriend are part of determining what this belief will eventually cause, what action it will eventually cause. Okay, Appia on the bottom of page 24 and the top of 25 in section 1.7, he talks about how this will go a little bit more. I'm not going to get into that. I'll let you read it yourself.